Okay, so welcome. We are going to talk tonight about how to talk union to non-members. This class is going to cover quite a few ideas on how to talk to folks who aren't yet part of our union about the value of having a union and give you some tips and ideas of ways, things that you can talk about to help them make a decision to join us, ideally. And this, some of the non-members may be new employees, others may have dropped their membership since the Janus law changed. And if anybody needs me to talk about Janus, just wave at me or send me a text, or I guess that's a message, a chat. And we want to share the tips and ideas that we've learned over the last few years about ways to approach non-member coworkers so we can keep our union and our contracts strong, which is a key thing. So I'm Deborah Kidney. I am the education coordinator for Council 2.
And I'm Suzette Dickerson. I am the King County Council 2 staff rep. And of course, my jurisdiction is King County and King County Library System. And I also have 2 water and sewer districts.
She is our staff rep tonight, and she does an amazing job. So let's start off by talking about values. So we're going to anchor a lot of how we talk about our union and our union experiences by talking about values. And values are the things that you believe are important in the way you live and work. So take a look. This is just a huge sampling of all kinds of different values. And why don't you look at or circle a couple of words on here that reflect why you are involved with your union. So now what I want you to do is look at the value and see if you can think of a sentence that expresses why this value connects to you having a union. So for example, if I circled, which I probably would, that my value is fairness, the sentence I might say is, the reason I appreciate having a union is because I know that there's a fair process for dealing with problems. So that's connecting my value to having my union. Would you please share your sentence that connects your value with your union? Here, go ahead, Lori.
Oh yeah, I can go. I said that I value stability, and I think the union protects us or provides that stability, especially in challenging times.
Oh, that's very nice. Excellent. So any other ways that people think that having a union is expresses the value of stability? Anybody else want to sort of think about that? What are you thinking, Michael?
I completely agree that it adds stability. You know, just having someone have your back at work is just a great feeling.
That's wonderful. And stability, also another way I look at stability is we have a contract that keeps the rules of our workplace clear and stable, right? So they can't just come in and say, oh, never mind about getting Christmas off. We decided you all needed to work overtime, right? So we have the stability that the contract provides as well. That's a great example. Suzette, I was going to put you on the spot, so now I am again.
Right, let me pull that one. Because now hang on just one second. What was it again? It was security. So,
nice.
So our union provides security through wages, hours, and working condition.
Yeah.
So we have that security because of our contracts.
The security of knowing what our wages, hours, and working conditions are based on our contract. That's perfect. And the other thing Suzette modeled really well was she said our union instead of the union. I really am encouraging you to think about the difference that makes when you say our union. It's much more inclusive. It brings people in, which is what we obviously want to do, which is why you're here. So anytime you're talking about your union, I encourage you to call it our union instead of the union. We are very habituated to saying the union. So I understand, how hard that can be to change. Anybody else want to share their value in their sentence? So this is the
Oh,
reason.
Joe raised his hand.
Thanks, Joe.
Our union gives us strength. Strength is the word, in, saying what we're worth and what we deserve.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's excellent. Thank you, Joe. So the reason we're going to come back to this several times as we go through tonight, and the reason values are such a good way of thinking about our union is because we share values with lots of people. Like you can see on this screen, we have trust, faith, quality, right? These are all values that most of us can relate to. So when we can connect our personal values to our union, to why we appreciate having a union, it's a language that crosses all kinds of other potential divides. So how do we find out what our coworkers' values are? Because this is part of what we want to do. So we ask them. So there's a bunch of questions that you might ask. So let's pretend that this is a new coworker and you want to kind of try to find out a little bit more about them and maybe figure out what their values are. So in the chat or out loud, what are some questions you might ask of a new coworker? What kinds of things in order? Go ahead, Joe.
I usually ask if they've ever been a part of a union before, and then what do they know about unions?
That's an excellent way to get the conversation going because you pretty quickly figure out where they sort of on the scale of knowledge. I love that. Yeah, that's great. What other questions might you ask a new person who's just shown up to work here?
I like to ask, what brought them to, in my case, the county.
Good, exactly. That's going to give you a real sense, right? What brought you to this job? Look at that, magical. That gives you a sense of their values, because what kinds of things might they say brought them to become a public employee? Kinds of things you hear usually.
Sometimes people relocate for family or because of another opportunity, or that opportunity to enhance their lives.
Better wages, better benefits, right? And so those also start to lead you into, oh, they have a family. So family is probably a value. So we can connect our union values to what we provide or what kind of support we as with a union can provide. So here's another question. What do you like most about working here? Now, if it's a new person, that might be a question that doesn't come up right away. But if you're talking to somebody who hasn't joined and they've been around for a while, you can ask them. That also gives you a sense of what they value. What would you like to see changed? That's a good question. That's a good opportunity, especially for longer term employees to find out, because then you can also connect it to what we've done as a union within the workplace. And this comes back to Joe's question, really. What experiences have you had in a non-union workplace? And I really like this question, because if they say, you could even say, why did you leave your last job? Or, but what this often does is it provides that comparison between our workplace with a union contract and a non-union workplace, where things can change on the employer's whim, all those things that we know happen in non-union workplaces. So these are all ways to have the conversation and to get to know the person, which is really important, but also get to understand a little bit more about their values. Suzette put in, what does this job provide that is important to you? Ooh, that's good. That's good, because that's going to get right down to why they probably made a decision to come.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to practice this now. So what values do you hear? And we have 3 different statements on here. So the first thing we really want to focus on is listening very carefully. So for example, if somebody said, what brought you to this job? And they said, I needed better pay and benefits. What are the values that you hear in that statement?
I was going to say health, because when I think benefits, I think health insurance.
Good, exactly,
So-
exactly. And that might directly relate to either them taking care of themselves or them taking care of their family. So maybe having a family benefit, like a family health insurance, could be a value that you could say, that's great. This relates to that, we have a say in our health insurance here. And that's because we have a union who helps us have conversations with the employer. So the boss doesn't just dictate. We have a say in our wages and benefits. What if they said, I wanted job security? What values do you hear in that statement?
Stability.
Very good. Anything else? It's often predictability, control, right? Control is a value, man. Some of us who are control freaks really value that. So, and then we can relate it to our union by saying, yes, stability is really important. In fact, we have a process to make sure people are treated equitably, and the rules are laid out for everyone to follow. So we all have a very stable work environment. The third one, I want to make a difference by working here. What values do you hear there? And then relate them back to having a union.
Altruism.
Ah, very nice. That's nice. What others? And how does that connect to our union, Joe? I'm going to make you think a little harder. Anybody? That's a tough one, right? Well, I think, let's see how I'm processing. How would I answer this? I would say that, I also really want to make a difference in people's lives. But what I like about having a union at my workplace is that it's very clear what the rules are. And so that I don't feel like I'm overstepping, or if there's a problem, I hear back from my employer. And that wasn't a great example. So I need some help here. Anybody else? Altruism is an important value. How does that connect to our union? Well, all of us are, I was a public employee as well. And we're all drawn to those jobs to make a difference. And our union can also help us make a difference, right?
Right.
Both individually and as a group. Did you have a better thought, Suzette?
Well, I mean, usually like in public sectors, we're always continually thinking about others. And so that is one component of that. And so in making that difference, it's making the difference not only for ourselves, our coworkers, and the community that we serve.
Ooh, that's wonderful. Okay, that's a great connection. This gives us a chance to make a difference for the community in a stable, predictable way. Oh, really nice. Yay, I knew I needed help on that one. Thank you. So one of the things that we don't technically need to talk about, at least at this stage, and especially with new employees, are all the technical union words, right? If you start throwing out things like grievances and collective bargaining and strikes, that's going to turn people off. Those are not values words. So they take away from the expression of our values, which typically come from our heart. And so if you love having a union because you can file a grievance, some people do, flip it around and think about what value that expresses. So if you were thinking about, I love the fact that we have a grievance process in our contract. What's the value that meets for you?
Justice.
Justice, exactly. Equity, fairness, right? So then you can say, I like having a fair process that I know I'll be protected in the event that, something happens at work, for example. So what we want to think about is values and not the process of grievances or the process of collective bargaining. We want to just focus on values at this stage of the conversation. So great. So let's hear from team Michael, Joe, Chloe. No, Chloe and Candace were together. Michael, Joe, and whoever my other person was. Lori.
Did she drop
Did we
off?
lose Lori?
I think we lost Lori.
Oh, here she comes back
she
in.
is.
All right, that
Yep.
means the pressure's on you guys. What'd you decide the values that you heard, and how did you connect them with your union?
One we came up with leadership, that, you want to make a difference, you need to make change, and you need to lead that change, and the union our union helps us to have a voice and to make that change and to take a stand on the issues and what we want to see changed.
Oh, excellent. Nicely done, you guys. Okay, Candace and Chloe, what was your take on this?
Well, we came up with a lot of them. We weren't sure how
Good.
many to go for, but I can give you the best of the best.
Of course.
Actually, I like the one in the back. Speaking of best, we did being the best, and that would be, giving your best work and your best selves for the good of the union.
Nice.
And then another one was we did belonging / community because they kind of intertwined a little bit in the way we thought. Belonging in that, belonging to the union, everyone wants to belong to some sort of group or organization, and that would give a sense of community.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. You guys got this. That's excellent. Thank you, Candace and Chloe. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Suzette for some slides, and we're going to switch sort of from thinking about values to some concrete messages and tactics that you can use for outreach to non-members.
Right. So we'll go through the 3 key messages. The first one being a union job provides better pay and benefits. And what a lot of people who may not be in a union or may not have had a union before, they do not understand that as part of a union, we bargain for everyone to have those. And even for what we bargain is generally given to non-represented employees as well. So even in the job that they had, even though it may not have been a unionized position, it was still driven by what union work has done for folks. So with that, when we're thinking about this, a union job provides better pay and benefits. So in that, what values do you hear?
Reliability.
Nice. Yeah.
Good one.
Reliability, predictability. Yeah. Anything else?
Stability.
Stability.
Absolutely. So here's one for you. Go ahead, Michael.
Continuous improvement.
Oh, continuous improvement. Nice.
Absolutely. How about this one? How about security? Because it provides, you're talking about your wages and your benefits and your pension. So not only is it providing security for you in, as in today and what you have, but it's also providing security for your future.
Nice.
So a union contract provides rules and stability. What values do you hear?
One of them is pretty obvious. Sits right there in the sentence.
Right.
Stability.
Hey, good guess.
So
Justice.
Justice.
this.
Nice.
Your union has your back. What values do you hear in that?
Community.
Community. Good one.
Support.
Yes.
That's good.
Is engagement on that list? I didn't check to see if it was.
It doesn't matter if that's what it speaks to you, then that's right. Because a value is a value.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fairness,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Equity.
Equity. One of the things, these 3 statements that we just went over all were part of a focus group that the National Union did several years ago, speaking specifically to non-members and saying what of these kind of statements appeals to you and would encourage you to join your union. So these are not just things we pulled out of the air, but these actually are phrases and statements that we really encourage you to think about when you're talking to folks that are non-members.
Local wins. What are some of the local wins that you may have had within your individual group? or local, whether it be something that you gain through a bargaining session, or something that you did through an MOU, or just a win within the workplace as a group.
Well, we just voted on an MOU. They're doing a a payroll change. We get paid monthly, and the county is changing payroll systems, so we're gonna get paid twice a month now. And as a result of that, like the first check is gonna come in at like 1 week's pay, and then like 3 weeks later we get the rest of our pay, and it's gonna like mess it up for a month where we're gonna have to go like some time without any money. And so we were rolling, and we actually had asked for a wage opener while we discussed this, because we're like, hey, there's a lot of other stuff going on money wise, between inflation and everything else. And so we're losing staff. So we ended up in this thing, we got a retention bonus of 1 week's pay, the option to cash in a week's vacation, 4% COLA starting June 1st. And yeah, and that's it. So so we're covered.
No,
And
that's
MOU, we got all that.
Great win. That's an excellent win. That's awesome. Thanks for
Lori-
sharing that, Joe. Lori?
Lori has joined the PEB. So they didn't, I remember the story, Lori, from the last time. They had been working for years to get into PEB, which was an ongoing challenge. And now that they're in, it's more people. So hopefully their rates, et cetera, for benefits rates will go down rather than being a small group. They now are part of a very large group. So that's a huge win. And it's something you'd have to explain to, coworkers who may just not have even followed any of those discussions.
So one of the things that we encourage folks to do, and I know I do this with my groups, I encourage them to share their wins, because so many times we're focusing on the issues and not necessarily bringing to the forefront everything that the union does for folks. And so what our union does, what we do, and how we as a collective all together factor into what happens within the group. So when we're trying to address issues, not only do we bring up the issues, but we also should be thinking of solutions. And so one of the ways to really showcase what the union does is by sharing what our wins are. So this is an example of City of Kent, where they do just that. They showcase what their wins are, and they report that out to their groups. So that's one of the ways. And on here it says all new hires can use both personal holidays up front. So in a lot of cases, for a lot of employers, they make it so that when you're a new hire, they give you a limitation of when you can actually start using your benefits. And in this case, they did it where they can use both personal holidays up front. Clarification regarding acting pay for correctional officers, assist with ADA accommodations for members, discussions about members not getting paid, continue to track temp hours, discussions about overtime not being offered evenly. That's a big one in a lot of places.
Yeah, and this group has this running list, and you can see it's been a few years since I got a copy. I need to update it, but they have this running list of wins that they've done over the years, and then they meet as a group with like several of their executive board meet with new employees, because as some of you probably already know, by state law, your union has 30 minutes time to meet with new employees. And so they have a lunch date, and they share the sheet and they talk about the ones they're most proud of. And it really helps folks say, well, heck, there's a lot of value in having a union. Look at all these things that they've been able to succeed at over the past years. So yeah, it's a great list, and I encourage other locals to do it as well. I'm glad to hear your groups do it, Suzette.
Yeah. And one of the biggest wins that we just did in the course of the pandemic was giving people the opportunity to work from home.
That's right.
So telecommuting has always been one of those favorable things that all groups have wanted and have, you know, historically not been able to do. What the pandemic did is created an environment where we had to do it, which showed that people are capable of doing it. And so now we are going to a different type of atmosphere as we return back into the workplace. So a lot of employers are now going to a hybrid model, which that is a win for us, because those are things that we had to negotiate in order for people to do it. Membership has its perks. So let's go through those. So for Council 2, life insurance. We have a $10,000 policy that Council 2 pays for. And that, you know, we pay the premium for that. And it's something that I know some of my members' families have had to use that, unfortunately, but it provides that for them. Another one is the scholarship. So through AFSCME, we have the scholarship program, which people are entitled to, our members and also their family members are entitled to utilize that scholarship. And then there's also AFSCME Advantage, another great benefit.
Anybody know about AFSCME Advantage? Is that familiar with any of you that are on the call? No, Michael says no. Do you know a little bit? You want to share a little more, Suzette? Or?
Well, that one is okay,
I'm
you
gonna
gotta remind me
see
of
if I
that one.
can. I'm gonna see if I can pull up a. I know if you go here, I'm gonna put in the chat where you can find. You
Yeah.
can follow up on this. So go ahead. It's all kinds of. It's discounts.
Yeah, for like
Go ahead.
car insurance, credit cards, all sorts of different things that AFSCME has that you are entitled to the discounts to.
My cell phone bill, I get 18% off because I'm AT&T. So
Mhm.
it's flowers, rental cars, Disney. It's all kinds of stuff on there. For some people, that's really important. They're shoppers. They really like it, right?
Mhm.
There. And if you go to AFSCME.org and just put in the search engine, you'll see that they'll have brochures and things. Okay, let me get back up here so I can click this. There we go.
And then the free college benefit. I don't know if any of you have tapped into that, but we do have the free college benefit, which you and your family members are entitled to. I right now am currently enrolled in that free college and chugging along to my degree.
Go ahead, Candace.
I was gonna say, honestly, when I first started where I work, I wish I would have known about that. Because my husband ended up going to school and we had to pay like $10,000 and that probably would have been all paid for. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm kicking my butt about it. But I mean, I already have my bachelor's and I know that it will go up to a bachelor. So that's something that I try to get out to our members since I wasn't aware. I try to say, hey, did you know? And it's not just you. It could be your spouse, it could be your kids. So
your grandchildren?
Or grandchildren, yeah, that too.
Hopefully you don't have those yet.
No, well, there could be, but
getting closer. Candace, how long have you been working at your job?
6 years, going on 6 years.
Oh,
yeah.
It was pretty, it would have been about 5 years ago, I think, that it started.
When it started.
Yeah,
Okay.
you didn't miss it by much.
By
so it may
much.
not have even been there when you
Yeah.
started.
Well, he started in January of 2017 going to school.
Oh, well,
So,
that's when
That probably would have been right around the time.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep, we
Darn.
had
So
it.
I was like, oh well. He goes, well, I could go get my bachelor's. I'm like, yeah, try to find time with your 80-hour-a-week schedule.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It's pretty rough. I mean, they have they are accelerated classes, so that means that you're doing a lot more work in a shorter amount of time. So each course is 8 weeks. It could be anywhere from 8 weeks to 16 weeks, but most courses are 8 weeks. So you have to do a full quarter's worth of work in 8 weeks. So it's
Right.
it's very intense. If you're going to do it, you have to make sure that you're going to commit yourself to it and say goodbye to your life.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
But it's all worth it though.
Right. Yep.
So having a say in your contracts and how your union is run, that is a big one, because our members are there with us when we're bargaining. And so and we always check in with membership when it comes down to bargaining, because we have to make our list of priorities. So that is important. Leadership opportunities. So how many folks here on this call are part of the e-board? Anyone?
Executive board, yeah,
There you go.
few people,
I am.
good.
Perfect. Perfect. And then also things like this, trainings. So there are trainings out there because we want to make sure that we are growing people, and so that this great work that we're doing continues to keep going and we continue to thrive as a union.
So, yeah, you did great. So we've highlighted values. We've highlighted some very concrete things that people get from being a part of our union. So now let's talk about how exactly are you going to talk to these folks, either the person who is not a union member or even someone who's dropped their membership. So point number one, and I'll have a handout with all this stuff on here, so you guys don't have to write everything down. In fact, I'll probably drop it in the chat as soon as I finish the slide. Are you the right person to be talking to them? How much time and energy are you able to put into that? And if we have a lot of people that we have to reach, because we've been in a pandemic for over 2 years now, and a whole bunch of people have started that we've never even met, we need to be really careful with our resources and our time. So really doing an analysis, are you the right person? If you're sitting right next to them, I'd say clearly you're the right person. But if they are somebody that, you just never see, or there's somebody else that's closer, you need to do that analysis. When you're talking to them, first you need to ask them and then listen. So there's nothing wrong with saying, why haven't you not joined our union? One of the other, we gave you those 3 statements, which will be on the handout. But one of the other ways that we should always try to talk about our union is to say, use words like join us. Why have you, would you join us? Why aren't you currently a member? We would like you to join us. Maybe you ask them, what do you want to see the union do? If they drop their membership, ask them why. There's nothing wrong with asking those questions and really listening carefully and openly to what folks say. Listen, don't argue.
Mhm.
And then you're going to evaluate the response. Is this a philosophical problem? Like, I hate unions and I always will. Or can they be answered, or can the issues they raise be answered in a way that brings it back to the values of having a union? Well, that's something you will have to evaluate as you're listening to them as you talk. And then sharing why you value having a union. That's the way to connect it back. And then finally, if they aren't ready to sign up, just don't worry about it. Some of these conversations take weeks. They may be 2 conversations, 4 conversations, 6 conversations, but just follow up with them, create a relationship, and continue to circle back. Is there anybody on the call that has had a conversation like this and wants to talk about successes or challenges around it? Anybody?
The biggest reason I get for people not, they're saying like, I just got this job, I was done, I need to save that money each month, and no matter what you tell them, like, hey, you're making $200 a month more than we were, 2 years ago because of us. So if you want, feel free to keep that money, at that rate now, if you want us to never have to be able to make another change again. But for some people, it just, the $50 in their pocket is more powerful than the $100 they could have a year from now.
Okay, so there's a really good example, and we're going to spend a little bit of time next, but I want to tackle this one right now, Joe. There's a really good example of something somebody would say, you know what, I don't need to I don't really want to pay the dues because I need that $50. So how would any of you on this, how would you respond to that? Thinking about what they're saying, listening. Is there a follow-up question? Joe, you're going to get to play this person. Is there a follow-up question you'd ask Joe?
So I guess I usually, I don't.
You just run away. Ah!
I start talking about the wins and how much money you're making now than you would have been. But I guess I should ask, like, what kind of struggles are you having? And because there are probably ways that the union can address that stuff.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. I love that. I also like the fact that you would tie it back into what we've gotten for them. Now, if they're a newer employee, they won't necessarily even know, right, that we bargain, you know, what was the raise? 4%?
4%, and we had
4%.
a 1.5 on January 1st, so we're up 5.5% this year already.
5.5%. So you can say, well, I think the 5.5% raise that we just bargained should more than cover your dues. And also going back to those benefits, right? If you have a chance to, you or a family member have a chance to take advantage of a free college, that's going to more than cover your dues. Some of these things, you know, sometimes I'm a person who really loves the idea of having a voice at work. For other people, it's kind of meh. So they might really tie into things like free college, scholarships, right? All things that are specific to having signed a membership card. Anybody else have some thoughts about how you could have that conversation when somebody says, I can't afford it, or I don't want to pay for it?
Generally, one of the things that I will go back to is, what about this job is important to you? Because it makes them think, right? Why did you choose this job? It goes back to those beginning questions. Yeah, those beginning questions and the values, because there's a reason why they took this particular job. And generally it's either the wages or the benefits. And so, which are things that we bargained for. And so it's important for us to have camaraderie, that it's important for us to stand together in solidarity so that we show the employer that we are one, and that, you know, we are not divided, and that we will continue to stand together to fight for these benefits that we currently have.
That's great. That's great. So Suzette, you and I talked previously about how you have these conversations when you're talking to somebody. Maybe you're helping somebody out that isn't not a member. And of course, we have to help everyone under the contract. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Correct. So I had a member, and I was helping this individual to get their they were doing an out of class, basically working out of class, and I helped this individual to get their back payment that they deserved, and then to be paid at the out of class rate. And so one of the things that I said was, you know, when I said, I have no problem doing this work for you, but, you know, with you not being a member, what it's saying is that it's okay for you to get paid, but you don't care whether or not I get paid, because it takes those resources. What I told him was that, you know, what you're saying is that it's okay for you. So I should be fighting for you to get paid, while you're saying that it's not okay, you know, that I should be doing work for free. And we had that conversation. And once, you know, and I did get him his back pay, and I did get him the out of class pay. And then he said, you know, I really thought about what you said, and you know, and you're right. And, you know, and so he signed his dues card. And then he said, you know, I'm going to encourage everybody else who's not paying their dues right now to sign up back up with the union. Because, you know, after Janice, we did have some drops, and other people were encouraging others to drop for whatever reason it was. not understanding the detriment that it plays to our union as a whole, because we all have a role in our union.
That's right. That's right. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to ask again, and just in case, I know we got one person. Is this a conversation anybody else has had and they got stumped or they had success? Joe gave us an example. No one else?
We recently had a couple drop after the long-term care thing passed. So people were saying, well, I got to choose. If I have to pay this, I'm not going to pay this. So lo and behold, it's been postponed for a while, so they're not paying anything. So I talked to our president, and she's kind of not dumbfounded, but like trying to figure out how can we get these people back. I mean, it
Right.
wasn't a lot of drops, but there were a couple. And actually, one of my coworkers that sits next to me, she dropped. She's probably between 5 and 7 years out of retirement, so she's trying to, save as much as she can too. So that's another thing too. When you have an aging workforce that is getting closer, they want to like hold all their money in, and that was another person to drop because he's going to retire in 2 years. So it's kind of hard to try to figure out how to get him back.
Yeah, that's why we're doing this, is to figure that out.
Mhm.
So other thoughts about that? What would you do if you were Candace's, you're Candace and you're sitting next to a coworker who says, I'm 5 to 7 years out and I don't want to pay the $55 a month.
I would just say, if it weren't for our union and all the unions across the nation, would you even have a pension?
Right.
Pose the question back to them. It's like, you're saying that you're going to have the luxury of actually having a pension. And so how do you think you got that pension?
Right.
How do you think you got the other benefits? If you have a Viva account, how do you think that you got Viva?
Right.
Make them start thinking about all these things that they would not have if it weren't for unions.
Right. And I did mention to her as well that, yes, you are getting closer to retirement, but wouldn't you want the protection and the support of the union? Because in case
So you
something
can
weird
get to
happens-
retirement?
Yeah,
Yes.
something weird happens and you get let go or something, you don't have that protection of the union. I mean, I guess you do,
Well, you would.
yeah.
But that does come back to those 3 statements that we talked about. We
Mhm.
talked about, wages and benefits. Well, retirement's a huge benefit. And as Suzette said so clearly, it's one we bargained hard for and continue to bargain hard for and continue to politically protect. So this is not, pensions are under fire all the time, and without our unions constantly supporting and protecting them. But the other one, oh dear, see, now my brain just faded. I'm going to look at my handout because it's right there in my handout. The union has your back. I think that's a perfectly appropriate thing to say. We're here to support you, whether it's your retirement or an unfair supervisor, but we can't do this for free, right? We have expenses just like a church does and a Boy Scout group and all of those folks that we have to cover, and we want to do the best job for you. Where were you going, Joe? It seemed like you had something you were going to potentially jump in on.
I was going to say, so they rolled back the long-term care tax, and like, who do you think is part of that coalition? No, nobody was happy with it, but like having the groups that are as big as unions, to all those members can come together and say like, this isn't gonna work. Like, this is terrible for people, and if you're worried about your Social Security, like, union members are the people who are part of those coalitions that are standing up for that. And
Right.
so like, feel free to drop out now. One by one, we'll lose it. And then, 20 years from now, when there's no Social Security, you can shake your fist in the air and wonder where it all went.
Exactly.
They're not easy conversations, Candace. And anybody else that is thinking about this, In fact, that's kind of what I want to do next is I want to do a quick brainstorm. I think I can do this. Let's see. I think if I, oh, here it is. This is what I want to do. No, that's not what I want to do. I want to do a brainstorm of other things. We've heard, these are great examples, but some other maybe questions or comments or thoughts that people have brought up to you or that you're concerned could come up. And I'm going to put them in chat. We're going to do the brainstorm in the chat because I can't find my whiteboard, but that's okay. Wait, one more place I can look here. Oh, that's okay. So in chat, I'm going to add. So you guys are going to tell me or add in chat yourself. What are some other questions or statements that you could hear from non-members that you want to, would like to group think about? So we've talked about, I'm retiring soon. I don't want to pay. What other things do you think about? I was in the, not feeling like I could afford the dues. No, not afford the dues. Good. Not now, not ever. Nice, Lori. Okay, so can't afford it. That's one. Others that people are thinking might pop up out of mouths. Go ahead, Joe.
I've always been looking for a way, and this is a little bit different, but how to communicate like in an easy, short way without, ranting at them like I usually do.
No ranting.
Like the history of unions, like you were saying, like the only reason you have a pension is because of unions. The history of unions, like how important it has been through history and how to like demonstrate that and kind of just give them a sense of that in a quick way. One of the things I bring up is that because you don't learn about unions in school. You don't learn about how
Right.
important they were. You learn about a couple of major labor laws, maybe in history class. But hopefully you learned about, Martin Luther King and if you can, but they don't mention that he was assassinated at an AFSCME rally. Like he was there supporting
Right.
the sanitation workers. And so
Striking workers. Yep.
trying to draw a line through history, like you're part of history now. Like if you abdicate your responsibility now, then you can only imagine what's going to happen, but without being so heavy-handed.
Not to be so lectury.
Right. trying to invite them into like the bigger picture somehow is
Okay. I love that. I think that's worth spending a little time thinking about. Other things you think people might say, you can either put them in chat or volunteer them and I'll type them in. Oh, nice. Using the Amazon and Starbucks examples as they're facing union. Good. Here, I'm going to put some in that I've heard. This is sort of, why should I pay if I get everything
Anyway.
anyway? Okay.
I
there's
was
one.
thinking that, but I wasn't sure if it applied.
Oh, yeah.
I don't
Absolutely.
I don't know if it bothers anybody else, but it so bothers me that these people are just like, well, I get what you guys get anyway, but I don't have to pay the dues. And I'm just like, everybody should pay, I'm
that's
just
one you
like,
have to deal with. You're absolutely
I
right.
know.
Candace.
And one of the answers that I say to that is, if everybody thought that way and everybody kept dropping their dues, what do you think would happen? Because if
Yes.
you're going to get to a certain point, if we have too many drops, then the unions, Council 2, our union would then have to let go of the group, because now it's not even beneficial to even represent that group because we don't even have the numbers anymore. So if you get below 50%, that's what ends up happening. And so, it's important for us to all stand together, because we need all the resources that we can get so that we can continue to keep fighting for the rights that we have, because these rights aren't promised every day. Employers are trying to take these rights away, as anybody who has bargained will know that the employers are going after all of these rights.
So, yeah, I think that's a really important, and I really I would have almost stopped Suzette just by asking them the question. What do you think will happen if, most of the folks in this workplace no longer pay dues? What do you think will happen? And let them process that. Okay, I threw in another one. I don't like the union's politics. Anybody heard that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess one struggle that I've been having is getting some of the new employees to sign. There's been a couple where they just like couldn't fill out the payroll deduction card right then and there. I don't know if it was too much pressure or what. I certainly did not try to be pressuring at all. And I have followed up with each of them once, but they also work in different buildings. So it's really hard for me to connect. So I'm starting to think that it might be best if I try to find a union member in those buildings that I can kind of delegate to get the job done.
Oh, that's really smart. That's sort of, am I the right person? And I really like the fact that you did follow up with them. A lot of when we do a class about new employees, we try to be very systematic and make sure that after they have their 30 minutes, whatever form that takes, that somebody's going back to them 2 weeks later and say, how are things going? Right. So you're building a relationship with them. But if you can't do that because you're geographically too far away, then find somebody else that can be the follow-up person. That's really smart. And people process differently. So a lot of folks don't make instantaneous decisions. If they come in with little knowledge about our union, if they don't have any union experience, they may just need to think about it for a week or two before they are ready. And they may need more information, right? So having a system in place to provide them sort of regular, feed them little tidbits of information over the course of time so they can, again, express the value of having a union, your union. Is there anything else that people want to wrap their brains around? Okay, so I'm going to do this. We have 4 things on here. I'm looking at my chat now. A nice, concise way to highlight union wins. And I think this comes back, Joe, to using our own local wins as well. Because I think part of what people want to know what you've done for me sooner rather than historically, although I love the history, I'm a history fan as well. So maybe there's some way of tying that. So that's wrapping your brain around how to communicate that. Why should I pay if I get it? I get it for free, if I get it anyway. I don't like politics, and I had a bad experience with another union. So those are 4 things. So I am going to put you back in your break rooms, and I'm going to tell you that group 1, which is going to be Chloe and Candace again, you guys get to work on highlighting union wins, finding a concise way to communicate wins, historical or local. And you also get to do, I don't like the union's politics. Okay, got those 2? I see Chloe's writing for me. Excellent. Okay, Joe, Michael, and Lori, you guys get, why should I pay if I get it for free? And I had a bad experience with another union. So I'll put you back in your break rooms and breakout rooms, your break rooms. You probably really do want a break room, your breakout rooms, and just come up with as quick, as close as you can to 2, maybe 3 sentences that not only help respond to the question, but also maybe express a union value. So welcome back. So let's see how we did with these 4 questions. So let's start with, why should I pay if I get it for free or I get everything you bargain anyway? Which team had that one? One of the things that you may or may not know is that the employer always knows how many union members we have because it's a payroll deduction process, right? So they know exactly if you have 200 people in your work site and 60 of them belong to your union, to your local, that's going to send a message that isn't one of strength. So it's a little harder to communicate that with, but I love that question that Suzette also said earlier was, but what if everyone decides not to pay? What if everyone decides that that we are going to still provide all the services they expect and all the wages and benefits that we have earned over the years and not pay dues? So that's good. Nice answer. Okay, what about, I don't like the union's politics.
Okay, so we discussed the fact that in regards to our dues, it's a very, very small percentage that would actually be used towards, say, a political campaign. And something that my local's president told me, that she told to a member, is that if you think about it, every single purchase that we make is paying some lobbyist somewhere, you know, whether you're involved in that process or not. So it's just like a very, really minimal thing. And then we also talked about, you know, asking them, well, what about it is so political? Like really try to make them answer. And if they can't even actually provide an answer, it's like, well, then is it really political, or is it just your perception of the organization?
Nice. Good. Other thoughts on that from anybody else? I don't like the union's politics. Go ahead, Joe.
Oh my gosh, I could go on this one forever. But you know, I've heard people say, you know, the union is just a syndicate. It's been, you know, it says it's for workers, but it's been taken over by bosses and whatever, and they do whatever they want. And I'm like, well, what do you think, you know, even if that were true, what do you think that like these major corporations are? Like, what do you think the national beef industry is? Like, they literally have like these groups, you know, who came up with beef, what's for dinner, and pork, the other white meat. Those are literally like syndicates, you know, like that are completely legal, that go to Congress and say like, we need this, and don't let our workers unionize. And we're like, we need to be able to not pay these people in order to put
Or money in our pockets.
Yeah. And so I told them the only way you do it is by showing up. You know, the people who show up are who make the decisions, which is why you find that a lot of these unions you know, aren't as progressive as you would think they are, because the people who show up are the people who are more conservative. And
Interesting.
And you know, and that's fine, you know, because we're all in it for our to make sure that we can do our jobs and get paid adequately. Those people care just as much about those issues as we might. Other people might care about other larger issues that the union can address. But
Interesting.
But the people who show up are the ones who make the decisions. So pay up and show up and tell people what you think.
So one of the things I like that you said was actually big corporations act as unions themselves. So if it's good enough for them, why wouldn't it be good enough for us? But the reality of it, and so this is sort of the standard response to that, is, you know, our union supports workers' issues. So we fight for things that are wages, benefits, working condition issues, rather than social issues. We try to avoid those. Sometimes it's a little hard because they get complicated. And we also have our members who has a say on what we support, which candidates we support, which issues we support. So there's a process where you, as Joe said, you want to get involved, you want to have an impact on the locals' politics. You have a voice if you're a member to do that. Good.
Right.
All right, let's do one more. I had a bad experience with another union. Who's taking that one?
That was another one where I kind of had the same answer. And
Okay.
the people who show up are the people who make the decision. So, you know,
If you want a different experience, get involved.
Right. You know, if the people on your negotiating team aren't very creative and don't have good ideas and kind of roll over, then, you know, you need to, if not be on the negotiating team, at least show up at the meetings where they say like what they offered and what they're being told, and kind of ask those questions. And if you have better ideas, say like, hey, I want you to ask for this, or I want you to tell them that, you know, I can't do my job while doing this, and you know, and be the change you want to see.
Yeah.
If you have, like, we have 50 people in our local, so it's, you know, it doesn't take much to show up and make something happen.
So anybody else have a response to bad experience? You know, just like people, no, there are no two unions that are alike. And as Joe said, you know, if you want to see a difference, then you need to get involved and
Mhm.
participate and make your voice heard in your union, not just at work. That's sometimes one that it takes time so that they can see that you really are different. But continuing to have those conversations with those individuals probably is one of the best way to manage it. And sometimes, sometimes people just get really burned by a previous union experience, and it's just something that has to change over time.
Right. And one of the things that you could do when they do have a bad experience is ask them, what was that bad experience? Because, and what made that experience bad for you? And then try to tie it again into the values, going back to the values and, and then back to your experience with the union that you're in. So, because like Deb said, the experiences are so different from union to union. And so it's going to be different, but maybe there's something that within your experience that would make it so that they would want to join.
Reconsider. Yep.
Excuse me for just 1 second.
Great. Well, these things take practice, and sometimes they just take you speaking from your heart and from your values. And you're not going to mess things up by trying. It's always nice to have other people, like other stewards or other e-board members that you can bounce these ideas off, or your rep, your account staff representative. It's a great resource for working on any of this kind of feedback. So check in with them. Thank you guys for coming and showing up and participating and being great participants here.